Welcome to Pop-Up Small Group. I almost said lunch with leaders then. That is my usual pattern. I just slid in. It clearly feels like lunchtime. I'm here with Stephen and Wayne, and we're just going to chat a little bit while you guys find us. So this is the Pop-Up Small Group on talking to your kids and teenagers about exams and tests. And we're just going to wait for you guys to find us. So if you know someone who is planning to be here tonight, text them and say, it's live, they turned up, it's happening. Or tag them in the comments, that'd be great. If you can pop in the comments as well where you're joining us from and say hi, that'd be great. We'd love to hear from you. If there's a group of you, it'd be great to hear where you're joining from as well. So speaking of which, Stephen and Wayne, where are you guys from? And who are you with? I mean, no one, but that's the question.
All alone here in the office. But yeah, joining from, I live in Solihull in the Midlands. So enjoyed a glorious sunny day today. It's nice that it's warming up a bit. Yeah, so really lovely to be with you all today.
Hello, good evening. My name is Wayne. I'm speaking to you from sunny Slough. Actually, it has been a lovely day. So yeah, it's a lovely evening as I look out. It's blue sky and it's lovely.
Do you say sunny Slough a lot? I feel like that's
no, that's yeah. It might be alliteration, but it's not. Yeah, it's. Although I was up in Manchester over the weekend, I was on a Scripture Union retreat, and it was quite pleasant there because I know sometimes Manchester gets a bit of a reputation of rain. Yeah. So, but it's certainly dry now, and it is quite bright, and it has been a lovely couple of days here.
It's been great. Wait, guys, we have defaulted to the British topic of talking about the weather.
Yeah.
And I'm proud.
Well, let's change it to football.
I think that was good. Wayne's desperate to talk about football. His setup tech question was football based, and I could not answer.
Was. There is more to life than football, just to say for those watching. My team is Arsenal. There is more to life. My son is Man United, but that's another story. Never mind. There's always next season. That's what I'm saying.
Brilliant. Hello to everyone joining us. This is the Pop-Up Small Group on how to talk to your kids and teenagers about exams and tests. I can't remember if we put all those things in the title, but that's what we're going to be chatting about. Big shout out to Birmingham Vineyard. I can see you guys. Thanks for joining us. If anyone else is coming in with a group of people, or if you're just on your own or with your dog, your pet, your partner, whoever, let us know who you are and where you're joining from. We would love to hear from you. Before we go any further, Stephen and Wayne, do you want to do a bit more of an official introduction, not just where you're from and the weather forecast, but do you want to say what you do for, I was going to say what you do for a day job, but a bit about you and why I might have invited you here tonight. So Stephen, let's go to you first.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So, so my background's in primary education up until last year. So working across the age range in primary schools in the Midlands. But last year, opportunity came up with Church of England under the banner of Growing Faith. Growing Faith, if you're not aware, is all about, challenging and shifting some cultures in the Church of England, particularly unhelpful ones around around children and young people. And so, no mean feat, really, to shift culture in the Church of England. But our role in that is representing different ways, and my part of that is running programs and professional development for people crossing those intersections of church, home and schools. So which is just an amazing privilege to be able to engage with such amazing partners in doing amazing work just all across the nation. So that's what I do day to day. I'm married and got 3 young children, so they are 7, 4 and 9 months. So that might account for the bangs.
You could tell it was a young one, not because you couldn't remember how old the child was, but because you were tired and had to think about it.
Nearly nodded off then.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you so much for being with us, Stephen. And how about you, Wayne?
Oh, yes. Hi. So my name is Wayne Dixon and I live in Slough, as I said, and I'm a schools worker. I was with Scripture Union for 25 years. I'm still linked with them. Phrase it's used as a local mission partner. But a few years ago, Christian Connections in Schools was set up so that I could continue face-to-face schools work in Slough, Windsor and Maidenhead. And that's what I do for 35 years now. And I love it. And exams is one of the things that I do. Might make reference to that later on. Married to Joyce. We have a son called Chris, who's 25, and I've been in Slough 40 years. I grew up in East London, a place called Leytonstone, And then I moved to Slough 40 years ago. So Slough has become very much home for me these last few years.
And Wayne has so much knowledge and experience that when Lucy from our team came on the call, she recognised Wayne because he came into her school when she was at school. So if that doesn't deserve a shout out and some little like emojis, I don't know what does. I think that is seriously impressive, Wayne. Thank you so much for your many years of service. And we're looking forward to hearing your wisdom in just a moment. But I'm going to start off just by explaining what pop-up small groups are. If you haven't joined us before, if you're here, there's not much to figure out really. We're on Facebook Live, so that we're easy to find and so that it's free. You can watch on your own, as I say, with your partner, with your pets, with your children. If they're still up, that's absolutely fine. But we do encourage people, if they can, to explore these topics in community somehow, because we're going to give you some content, I hope, that's really useful. But so much of our learning and growing actually comes from our community and from our conversations. And so we really are not here to say we've got all the answers. We're just here to springboard your discussion and say, here's some way of looking at some things. Here are some key tools. We'll refer back, as those of you who are used to Parenting for Faith will know, we've got 5 key tools, which we apply to all sorts of different situations for helping kids and teens meet and know God. We're just going to throw those around, give you some ideas, some things to work with. But you got to do the hard work of chatting about it or thinking about it and working out what this means for you and your family. Every family is unique. You're the expert in your own child. So your next step will probably look quite different to the person next to you. And that's absolutely fine. There is no one size fits all. We're not going to do a bish bash bosh. This is how to sail through exams. Sorry if that's what you came for. It's not going to happen. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this evening. Do engage with it. You will get the most from it if you chat to the people in the room who you're with. You can ask questions. You can type comments. We'll have a time for questions at the end. We'll put all those to Wayne and Stephen, but type them whenever they pop into your brain, because otherwise you might forget them. And we'll put those to them later. But do comment, share your wisdom, share your ideas, what's worked for you. That'd be great. So I'm just going to kick us off before we go into a bit more depth with these guys, with our first point of this evening. So at pop-up small groups, we generally try and have kind of 3 takeaways, 3 main points. And my one that I wanted to share is, let's start with ourselves. So we are all coming to this from different places. We've got our own different experiences of tests and exams. Our children are different ages. We're thinking about different things. Some of you are thinking about spelling tests or swimming badges or those kind of things. Lots of you will be thinking about GCSEs and A-levels starting this week. And your children are individuals who are going to be approaching that really differently. Some will have revised loads and worked super, super hard and be super, super stressed. Some won't have been, and you will have been, your struggle will have been encouraging that. And their whole approach to it is all really, really different. And I just wanted to flag that sometimes the conversation around stress and exams and these kind of things can actually be as much about our identity and our anxiety as parents and carers as about our children. And I'd love to just take a moment to separate those out. And rather than me speak lots of words, I'm actually going to give us a pause. So I just want us to stop before we go any further. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that, or just get relaxed, however you like to chat to God. And I'm just going to ask, God, would you just come and highlight anything that would be helpful to us, for us to think about in terms of ourselves and exams, anxiety, stress, identity. It's going to feel a bit weird, but I'm just going to leave it for a moment. See, a Bible verse might come to mind. You might pop a word, a thought, an idea into your head. Don't worry about the silence. I know it can feel a little bit uncomfortable. Nothing came, don't worry, but I just wanted to give space for that. And that might be something to revisit later or to write down. And that might come up in the chat or be something for you to deal with God on your own. But as you do that, and as you go through that process, it's just a reminder that God knows us and loves us as well as our children. And to remember that you're part of this whole situation, you're journeying alongside them in this. So to be kind to yourself and look after yourself as well. And then as you do that, you might want to start using some of the key tools we talk about, which is create a window into your experience. So you're probably not sitting an exam or a test right now, but you might have done in the past, and you might want to chat to your children about how you handled that and how you talk to God about it. Or you might have some other things going on in your life that are a bit stressful. So I was telling Wayne just before we came on, we've got a lost passport in our house today. It has been a stress fest, and all prayers welcome, just saying. But so that wasn't an exam situation, but I was thinking, okay, I'm really stressed. So how can I show my children and share with them how I engage with God in that? So I'm sharing, I'm feeling really stressed about this. So I'm telling God how I'm feeling. I'm sharing my emotions. I'm asking how I'd like him to help. It doesn't have to be the exact same situation that your children and young people are going into. But by doing that, you're just sharing and showing a little bit of how you might handle a stressful situation. I'm going to hand over to Stephen now, who's going to talk a lot more about how we make that jump. How do we frame for our children who God is in all of this, what he thinks of them in the midst of this? He's got a really helpful way of talking to them about it. So over to you, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Anna. It's so interesting, isn't it, to reflect on our own experiences. And I thought I might just start with this question, which you might want to take into discussion groups shortly, because I think whether our experiences of exams have been good or bad, they will shape the way that we talk to our children. So what do you wish an adult told you when you were doing exams? Whether that was good or bad, it's worth paying some attention to that, because it'll be shaping the way that we interact with our children and young people. I'm going to share with you a really helpful model, but before we get there, there's just 4 words on the screen. And in terms of this conversation around our children taking exams, I wonder which of these we should emphasize the most. And is that the same as the thing that we do emphasize? I wonder whether there's an order to those, a priority, or there's something that should be laboured and something that should be set aside. I wonder what your initial responses are. I'm going to share with you a model that I came across called the Cycle of Grace some years ago. And I can't promise it will for you, but it really impacted me to the point that I'd say even changed my life. Maybe not in relation to exams, but in terms of my wider sense of identity. And this model was coined by 2 Swiss theologians, Dr. Frank Lake and Emil Brunner. And they coined this phrase, the cycle of grace, or the cycle of frustration, which is what we're actually going to start with here, if my slides move on. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So the cycle of frustration is where we start with this sense of achievement, putting our energy and our impetus into you must achieve really well. The sense being you are valued because you have achieved, because you have performed well. You are a valuable person. Now, this sounds really harsh, doesn't it? But in an education system that easily leans to very narrow margins, you know, having come through that for the majority of my working life, the amount of performance measures and progress scores and attainment standards that are just part and parcel of what we do in education. Education can become so narrow to the point that our schools are almost factory lines towards just taking this test at the end. And our children, our young people are easily just wrapped up in this. Of course, there's so many schools that are not are giving that broader sense of what education is about, but it's important that we're mindful of that idea. So the idea is going from here is that when we achieve, we gain status. If you achieve, you increasing your significance around your peers and perhaps your parents and your teachers. They say, oh, I'm so proud of you for what you have done. And we also, you know, with my young children, when they do something remarkable, you know, you do want to tell people, but I think it's worth just highlighting what is it that we are celebrating. From there, we move to this sustenance, this place of sustaining us because we have increased in that significance in our amongst our peers or those around us. And it's from that place that we hope to feel accepted because we have or we've become somebody. We have a new identity because of my performance. Now, hopefully you've spotted the problem with this cycle and why it might be called the cycle of frustration. It's because if you don't achieve at that step one, well, that's it. That's the end of the story. If your identity is wrapped up in the stuff that you do, or the score that you get, or the test that you've succeeded or failed in, if that's where it stops, well, we're a long way from being accepted. And we have to maybe flip this cycle to what is known as the cycle of grace, which starts with this profound truth that we are accepted not because of our performance, but actually in spite of it. Jesus modeled this perhaps best of all in that relationship with the Father as he comes up from the waters of baptism. Before he's done anything, the words from heaven come, "This is my dearly loved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And this is where I think as parents, we have to continue to just frame that and speak this and encourage this over our children, that all that good stuff in Psalm 139, that God beheld us even in our unformed state. His eyes beheld us. He knew all the days mapped out for us, all of that belonging and acceptance and worth and significance that we have even before we took a step towards him. And it's in this knowledge that we have to keep coming back to. And again, Jesus models this brilliantly as even the Son of God, God the Son, has to felt it necessary to withdraw regularly to pray. And we see this so evident in the Gospel of John as he says things like, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." There was this synergy, this working out, this sustenance of that knowledge of being worth something and held in the Father's eyes. And I think we too, and I think Anna probably alluded to this a little bit in the introduction, is that we can frame those windows into our world, and how we deal with a lost passport, or how we deal with a big presentation coming up, or how we handle those daily stresses that just come in. Are we modeling that dependence on that acceptance that we have from Father God? And it's when these two elements come together that we move into this place of significance, this kind of quiet confidence of knowing who I am, and therefore I move towards doing something. And we see this again in Jesus, those I am statements. I am the way, the truth, and the life, he would say, as he's built in this knowledge of his whole identity being wrapped up in who God has welcomed him to be. And I think it's here as well that we have to be mindful of, with our families, of being able to journey some of those stresses. If our children are going through an education system that perhaps isn't the cycle of grace, might be the opposite. It's how we can encourage our families, our children to chat and catch, if I've got the lingo right, to chat to God, to talk to God, to connect with God as they journey through those things. And finally, of course, it's from that place that we can achieve. And that might not be in a secular sense of what success looks like, but built upon those foundations. It's an identity that is able to handle success or failure. And I think that's really interesting again, because if our kids get this, there is a responsibility on us as parents to just continually model that as well, because we need to be encouraging this cycle rather than spinning it on its head. And so maybe some of that will come out with the questions around, well, what do we do when we need to work through this with our children, when perhaps things don't go right, or that stress is building up in myself because there's something of myself wrapped up in my children's success. So that would be really interesting to unpack. Now, I think my time is pretty much up, so I'm going to just whiz through that slide and land on this page. This whole cycle could be summarized in these two very memorable sort of phrases. And I wonder for us as parents, which of these resonate most of all for us? And what would our children say if they were joining the call today? Am I a person because of what I do? Or do I do because I am already somebody? And I love this final quote from George Muller, who would say, above all things, see to it that your souls are happy in the Lord. Other things may press on you, exams, tests, stressful moments, even the Lord's work may have urgent claims upon your attention, but I deliberately repeat, it's of supreme and paramount importance that you should seek above all things to have your souls truly happy in God himself. So I'll hand back to you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That's really helpful for framing. I've seen some really good social media posts and language from parents recently saying, you know, my child's going into exams, but we told them we love them, they have worth just because of who they are. But I think that cycle really unpacks that a bit more, because a child or teenager can hear that, can't they? But then they're still worried about their exams. It's still hard. But I think understanding how that fits and flipping from the cycle of frustration to the cycle of grace is really powerful. So thank you so much for that. We're going to head over to Wayne now, who's going to take us through a little bit what this looks like practically. We want to surf the wave alongside our children. We want to support them step by step. And Wayne has been going into schools for many years, talking to pupils and parents and schools about how they do that and how they partner together. So he's just going to share from his experience for a moment. Over to you, Wayne.
Brilliant. Thank you. And it's great to have just heard that cycle of grace and that frustration of grace and those stories and quotes and people and things to do with like John's, the I ams. So I want to share a little bit of my own story. I mentioned that I've been in Slough 40 years. So I want to take you back to August 1983. So some of you watching may have been around, some of you may not have been around. But so for me, I was in East London and I was awaiting my A-level results. And in those days, they were posted. Some schools may still do that. Most schools that I visit around here, you go in on results day. I had a part-time job. I was working in Iceland, as it now is, used to be called BJAMS, and the results were home. So I got permission, got on a bus, went home. And I can remember going into my room, the envelope was there. I was a bit shaky and nervous and I opened it. And sadly, I didn't get what I needed. And I was gutted, I was low, I was frustrated, I was angry, but I tried my best. This is what happened. I went into school, spoke to the head of sixth form. He was great. He listened to me. He gave me some advice. And as a result of his advice, I ended up in Slough. I'd never heard of Slough. I love Slough. Been here 40 years. But there's a couple of things that I want to mention. Your value, those of you who are listening, watching, or playback, your value as a person can never be defined by a set of exam results. And maybe, just maybe, that might be something to share with your 7-year-old who's just done some SATs, or your 15, 16, 18-year-old. Yes, exams are useful. They are helpful, but they're not the be-all and end-all. So we're going back to my story. One of the things that was shared with me around that time, I was a Christian, and this verse from the Old Testament, from Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Now, I know sometimes there can be dangers of taking verses out of context, etc., but I found that verse helpful, and I've shared it a lot with people. So I moved to Slough. I love what I now do. I believe God has led me. But at that time, there was that sense of low. Here's a key thing that we can do. Listen, 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 and care for those whom we love as a parent or a carer. So whether they're 7 or 17. Our son, Chris, he's 25 now. And we said to him, particularly when he was 16 doing his GCSEs, we said, Chris, we're not going to love you any more or any less, regardless of your results. And we repeated that 2 years later when he was doing his A-levels and he had a chance to go off to university, etc. And I think that's so important. And my hope, my prayer, is that we will not determine our love based on how well or how not so well our children, our loved ones may do. There is a key thing. It's about doing your best, giving of your best, and achieving your potential. So I've got a slide, if that can be shown, please. And then I'll just share some more thoughts. There is a slide that's coming up. And if for those of you that like a little bit of alliteration, there's 4 sweet P's for you. Parents, pupils, professionals, overarched by partnership. This was all put together by a guy called Ben Rolfe, because I gave him the script that I do in these schools. And I said, Ben, can you animate it for me? Because I had no idea. And then at the top, give of your best. And at the bottom, achieve your potential. So just home in on that. And then I'm going to elaborate on just parents, because I'm guessing most people tonight are parents or carers. It's really important that we do that. What I was saying, that is that we listen and love and listen and care for them. Check this phrase out. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. And we need to love unconditionally, just like God loves us. And so if we are a parent, a carer, a youth worker, a children's worker, I need to love, care, support, encourage, and affirm, regardless of the results. I share that a bit out of my own experience and in talking to usually young people, mainly teenagers, but I was in a school today, primary school, chatting to some year 6s who have just done some SATs. So here's something. I wanted to be either a professional footballer, there is more to life than football, but I really actually wanted to be a teacher. Maths and PE, they were my 2 favorite subjects. Check this out. Minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC over 2A. Now, some of you might think, what is that? Now, from what I can remember from 40 years ago, that what I've just shared solves quadratic equations. I've got no idea how to use it now, but I do remember learning it. And the key thing is, well, what's the point? Let me just elaborate on that. Results day will come in August. Now, if your son, daughter, grandchild, neighbor, cousin comes back in August and has got 29 A-star grades or 9s, I exaggerate that, but they're not feeling good and their well-being is rubbish, what's more important? And that's why it's really, really, really important that as parents and carers that we love, listen, and care for them and put things in perspective. Yes, they are useful, exams, but they are not the be-all and end-all. So whether that's SATs, that I believe some of the even younger primary ones are taken this week from the school that I was in, GCSEs that are going on right now, A-levels, and so on. We just need to put things in perspective. And the last thing I'm going to say, because I'm going to move over to questions, is sometimes people think, well, what happens if it does go wrong? Well, possibly the worst thing that can go wrong, and I sort of slightly hesitate, but this is what I'd share in schools. And please, as I share this, I hope that particularly those of you that are in groups, share it with others and pray. The reason why I do this session called Exam Attack, and there is a website if you're interested in it, is that 2 stories, a guy called Paul and a girl called Amy. They were both 16, year 11. They'd both done their GCSEs, but for whatever reason, both of them committed suicide. When I heard that story, I was angry, frustrated, annoyed, gutted. If they were still around today, they would be in their mid-40s because this happened over 30 years ago. And that's why in the schools that I visit around here in Slough, Windsor, Maidenhead, I say to schools, if you would like me to come in or to churches and present a session called Exam Attack, then I will. And I've done that in a number of schools over the years, because when I think of Paul and Amy, and sadly, some of the schools that I visit today, there have been other situations. And I think actually we've got something wrong. Yes, exams are helpful. Yes, they're useful, but they're not the be all and end all. And your value, your child's value, your grandchild's value can never be determined by one set of exam results. And then the final slide, I'll just put it up there for you. If you want to check it out, there is a website. It just talks a little bit about the 4 groups, parents, teachers, peers, and you, each behind brings some stories but the parents, carers one is the key one. And I'll finish again with that verse from Jeremiah. I know the plans I have for you. And my hope and prayer is that our children, our grandchildren, our family, if they don't yet know Jesus, they might come to know Jesus. And if they do, they can really understand that your exams are useful, but please put them in perspective. That's my own story. I had no idea what was going to happen after 18, but I've trusted God. He has led and guided, and now I just love what I do. I'll hold it there. Hope that's been useful. And now back to Anna, and I believe we have some Q&A.
I'm on mute. I open windows instead of unmuting myself. We're all professionals here. It's all good. Wayne, thank you so much. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your own story, and actually for highlighting that whole issue of mental health and well-being. It is Mental Health Week this week, and I think it's very intertwined with this subject, isn't it? We do have some episodes in our back catalogue, particularly in the podcast, of looking at different mental health issues. But there's lots of other places we can signpost you to that have resources and can support you better with that, because mental health is a huge factor within this. If you've got any questions for Wayne or Stephen, please type them in the comments now. We're just going to stick around for a couple more minutes, so don't miss your opportunity if you've got anything you'd like to ask them. If it's something personal and you don't want to be identified, you can also direct message us. That's absolutely fine. It takes a little while for people's questions and comments to come through. So we'll just hang about for a bit and see if any are coming. Just to say that we will be back in July with another pop-up small group, this time on making decisions. Rachel Turner will be back with us, and we'll be thinking about how to talk to our children and young people about decision making. And that could be big decisions about where to go to university or next steps in education. It could be much smaller day-to-day decisions about what they watch or don't watch, or what they go to, or wear or don't wear, whatever it could be. But we're really going to unpack that. So I hope you can join us for that as well. We've also got a little bit of extra support on our website around exams and tests at the moment. There's some videos specifically on SATs. We've got one on results day, particularly for processing it with your child. If it doesn't go well, it's not quite what you want. And we've got an article too on using the key tools. So how do you pick up those key tools and use them throughout this period of GCSEs, A-levels, whatever they might be facing right now? Okay, we've got a question. Are you ready, guys? we're gonna spotlight you because you're going to answer this, not me. So the first question is this: what do you do when your teenager just isn't bothered enough about exams and needs to be a little bit more stressed? Any thoughts on that, guys?
That's a hard one. Like, I mean, particularly when we're dealing with like young people, teenagers, and think of it in other spheres. In the end, there's not that much that we can do. I shared some about loving them and caring for them and encouraging them. But in the end, if a youngster, if I go back to that slide I had before, parents, pupils, professionals, partnership, one of the things I talk about, if the parents, in this case, are wanting to do their best, but the pupils just can't be bothered for whatever reason, it doesn't work. Or if the teachers are doing their best, but the parents are not being supportive, it doesn't work. So it works best, ideally, when parents, pupils, professionals work together. But if the youngster, for whatever reason, doesn't want to be involved, that's a really hard one. I'd like to think that just by encouraging and affirming and being patient, but it's really hard to know what to do beyond that.
Anything to add on that, Stephen? It's a toughie, isn't it?
Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, maybe we need the cycle of frustration. It is really important. You must pass it. It's life or death, you know. No, maybe not that far, but there's encouraging that intrinsic motivation it has to be kind of self-birthed. You know, I suppose going back to maybe a theological point, Jesus loved people to life, didn't he? And he brought out the best in people. So framing it around, you know, this is important. This is going to help you in life. This is some of the things that you might be able to achieve. This is how life kind of works, but that not necessarily being the defining thing. That's not very helpful at all. I'm thinking on my feet here.
I think it's good. Well, I found it useful. Yeah, I guess there's just a thing of consequences as well, isn't it? Of in an ideal world, they get to experience in a small way that not studying for exams and tests gives a result that they might not want, and how they, chatting through with them how they feel about that. Is there anything they want to do differently or not? And there are a lot of second chances. The good thing about education is there's often different routes and options you can do with the grades you didn't want, or you can resit, or all those kind of things. So keeping that relationship with them is really important, and that's the key thing. I think what Wayne was saying earlier about really figuring out what's important. Are the exam results the be all and end all, or are we thinking about their mental health and well-being and our relationship with them as well, and kind of the full context of that? Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, just got carried away. We do have another question, which is okay. So we've touched on this a bit, but anything to add? What about the other way? So what about if they're putting too much pressure on themselves? So we see both of these are quite common, aren't they? But maybe address this one more.
Yeah, I think the pressure thing, I'd maybe just suggest about perspective, because sometimes people think that it is all about the exams, and it's maybe giving examples and illustrations that people that we might know. I know, certainly that's what I say for myself. I love what I do. I feel that it's of help and use, but I know, like sometimes people say, where did you go to university? I say, well, I didn't go to university, but my value as a person isn't been denied by that. Or I say the only A I ever got is the A in my second name, in my first name. Wait, no,
one of the names anyway.
Yeah, one of the names. Yeah, get that. So I think it's really do it. But there is, and I think sometimes the pressure that the youngsters put on themselves is maybe sometimes may have come from a parent or carer. Not in all cases, but sometimes, and maybe the youngster feels, I've got to do well because this is what is expected. It's great to be able to do well, but it doesn't define you. Your value as a person can never be determined by a set of grades. I really do believe that, and that would be something that I would want to share this evening.
I think that point about perspective is so key. It seems like the biggest thing, doesn't it, in our lives? And we all have this day to day, don't we? Really, this is the most important thing, and then a week passes or a year passes, and it fades. It loses its grip. It loses its power. And I think sometimes sharing some of those failure stories, or failure inverted commas stories, they can be really helpful in and connecting, perhaps if it's not even if it's not even you as a parent, but it's other respective role models within your family or church circles who have journeyed stuff, who have perhaps not hit the grade but have still made something of their life. It just might kind of reduce some of that anxiety, some of that pressure. But yeah, it's just banging that drum still, isn't it, that you're worth something irrespective.
Yeah, and something that maybe might be helpful for anyone this evening who's maybe involved as volunteers with children's work or youth work, but particularly with exams, it is noticeable that, for example, if a group meets on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Friday, sometimes the youngster may not be able to, or may not be allowed to go to a Bible study group or anything like that around these next few weeks. And it's just accepting that as the reality, and that not, sometimes people think, oh, it's all about attendance, and I must be at church 15,000 times on a Sunday. It is helpful to be part of a church and a group and support and encouragement, but maybe sometimes for the short period of time, for example, year 11s, after the GCSEs are finished, unless they go back for sixth form induction, they're going to have the biggest, longest holiday they're ever going to have. And so the next few weeks, if for some reason they're not around on a Friday or a Wednesday, it is about balance, and you can do both. But that's one of the things that maybe sharing, and hopefully everyone here tonight has got other people whom they can talk to and share and unwind with and say, this is where I'm at, so that we can helpfully support and encourage each other. That's maybe another key area to think about.
Yeah, thank you for that. We are going to take one more question. If you are with people and you want to start chatting and going straight to those discussion questions, go for it. They are on our website. The link will be appearing now. If you want to start talking, you may, if you have super organized people, already have them printed out or on someone's phone or something. But let's just wrap up with this last question, which is, are there good ways that church kids leaders can help families with exams and the grace circle, the cycle of grace? So I think this is someone watching who's been like, that's great. I love it. I want to help families with it. What about from a sort of children's youth family leader perspective?
Oh, well, I think I really like what Wayne said earlier about, really listening well and hearing really well. Because I think there you build some rapport, you build some relationship, build some trust in that. Yeah, I think the Bible's just rich, isn't it, with that story of grace, of that love, acceptance, that worth, that from page one, made in his image, reflectors of who he is, that desire to be close to us, and that drawing back to himself over and over and over through the scriptures. And then most powerfully you see in the gospel, of course. And I think almost just giving families those go-to kind of verses or passages to dwell on together or frame together and explore together can just be just a really simple, probably a very obvious way of maybe just thinking about how we book this narrative and how we renew our kind of thinking and our default as a family around being worth something in spite of those success measures.
Mm. I was just going to say, being willing to talk about it at all, like engaging with, recognizing that tests and exams are a big deal for our kids and young people. I think they sometimes feel like church is one thing, church is about God and singing and prayer, and then there's this whole other section of my life that's about school and studying and exams. And I think as much as possible where we can tie together truth and experience and say, hey, this, we're talking about Paul saying this in the Bible, this is relevant, this means something for you sitting your exams this week, and just kind of linking those things up for them might be helpful. Did you have anything to add on that, Wayne?
I just saw something just come up about a podcast, and I don't really understand podcasts and things, but what I did, I don't know if it still works because I've got no idea, but a number of years or so ago, someone from Scripture Union came down to one of the schools I was doing exam attack in and recorded it. And because the similar presentation I do in schools is the same, it's kind of geared towards year 10 to year 13. So I think it might still be on the website. I'm not sure. And I have seen somewhere, I think Youthscape might have some helpful hints. I don't know if it's a podcast or if it's just some words. And I'm sure that there are plenty, and I'm sure there is some good ideas that people can connect to, if that's of any help, people.
Yeah, so the question was, is there a podcast for teenagers to encourage them through exams, both relaxing and also encouraging? Sounds great. Sounds like the person who asked that question should make one, I reckon. But the only thing that came to mind for me was the, Lectio 365. So that's not specifically to do with exams, but it's a way of reading the Bible that's very reflective. Someone reads to you. You can have it with music if you want to. If that's something that you use and you could create a window into that for them, that might be useful. They might find their own way of doing it. I don't know of any specific podcasts. I don't know if you do, Stephen. Probably not. But if we come up with anything, we'll post it in the comments with this afterwards. Right. I think we better wrap up there because I want to give time for you guys to have discussion, whether that's just with someone in your home or a group that you've gathered with. But thank you so much for joining us. Huge thank you to Stephen and Wayne. We're so grateful for your wisdom and the things that you've shared there. There are links in the comments to the things that they've mentioned, to Wayne's website, Exam Attack, and this will all be on our website tomorrow. So if you want to come back to it and send it on to someone else or come back and watch bits, you are very welcome to do so. But have a great night and praying for all your children and young people as they go through their exams and tests as well. Bye.